Hey, it's Haley Steinfeld. When everything requires your attention, it can be tough to figure out what to prioritize. But I'm here to talk to you about something that you should always put first, your breast health. In fact, if you're 40 and over, you should be getting screened once a year. And if you're under 40, it's never too soon to visit yourattentionplease.com to learn about your breast cancer risk. So go on, pay the girls some attention and take the time to find out your breast cancer risk at yourattentionplease.com. Trust me, your future self will thank you.
Are negative Google reviews hurting your business? Don't let unfair feedback cost you customers. At Webamax, we specialize in removing false, misleading, and damaging reviews so your online reputation stays strong. Our expert team works quickly and legally to clean up your digital presence, helping you rebuild trust. Visit us on the web at www.gowebamax.com. That's GOWEBIMAX.com, or text us for a free quote at 856-840-8343. Don't let bad reviews define you. Get immediate help from Webamax.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 693 of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here, joined by my buddy Donald Wine. Donald, how you doing today? It is mid-afternoon, I guess, 2:30 or so on a Thursday afternoon after the Blue Devils spanked Cal last night.
Yeah, it was a double Wednesday for me because not only did Duke win, I got Beyonce tickets, Jason. I'm going to see Beyonce on July 4th right here in D.C. I won the lottery of sorts, so me and my friends are going. It's going to be a great, great time. But, Jason, today is February 13th, which means we have to stop and say happy 70th birthday to the GOAT, Coach K.
Oh, I love it. Exactly. Absolutely. And I guess Duke gave him a little bit of an early birthday present last night. Before we get to the full, headlines, good and bad from this game, that the Blue Devils win 78-57, 21-point victory. You and I touched on this very, very briefly when we were just chatting earlier today. Kind of a sort of an uninspiring game, almost. I mean,
I don't know if uninspiring is the way to put it, but it was definitely just like it was a
chill.
coasty type of game. Yeah, it was very chill.
Yeah, like we just methodically built the lead out to 20 or so points, like in the first couple minutes of the second half, and then kind of coasted from there. So the line in Vegas, if you were a Duke fan and you bet this game in Vegas, you're pissed off because the line was 24.5 points. And I think if Duke cared even a little tiny bit about the line, and of course they don't, and they shouldn't, and that's absurd. But if they cared about the line, they would have covered 24.5 with ease. But we ended up winning by 21 because I think it just didn't matter.
Also, Jason, if you think about it, the biggest run that we had was the 7-0 run to start the game. Then after that, it was kind of back and forth. I think Cal had a 6-point run in the second half, but whatever. But if you look, how you have the margin or the percent of victory. If you look at that line on KenPom, it is a straight line.
Yeah.
It's a straight line the entire game. I think it started at 98.6%, and it just was a very straight line the entire rest of the game. So that just tells you, like, from start to finish, like you said, it was kind of clinical in regards, and because of that, it just kind of felt like we were just in chill mode the whole way, and we had some good performances. So let's get into it.
Yeah, exactly. Last thing I wanted to say about that really quick was how freaking spoiled are we?
Yeah, it was one of those things where it wasn't like intentional that we both thought that, but like when you said it, I was like, Jason, I was gonna say the same thing. Like it just kind of what it felt like, but that's great for us, right? That means that it's so methodical that it's like it just feels like another day for us, which is great. We want games like this because it means that our team is that good, but we also kind of want, I guess, the drama, so to speak, not much, but just enough to keep everybody fully focused.
Yeah. We just beat an. By the way, it wasn't just you and me who I think were a little bit like, whatever on this game. This is the fewest headlines we've gotten all season. And I'm including preseason games. I think we maybe got 10 or 12 at the most. It just wasn't a game that inspired all of you out there in the listening world to send us your headlines.
And
So
I
I
will
only got
say,
a couple. Yeah,
I will say it's also because it was a 9 o'clock start that really turned into a
yeah.
9:15 start. It ended at like 11:20 on the East Coast. I think I took a shower and went to bed immediately after the game was done because I was like, man, we are pushing it here. But that might contribute to the fewer number of headlines that we got for this game.
Yeah, so I'll go first. I only got a couple that I thought rose to the standard, even though we didn't get a lot. My bar is still high. Ted Allen gave me Windex Wonders. Malwatch James clean up the glass as Coop jams Cal. I thought that was a quite appropriate headline.
Yeah, John Grantland wrote in. He wrote in a few of them. The best one I thought he had was Flag, Proctor, and Man Man are the simple, bare necessities of Duke's success. And I thought that was very, very poignant last night.
We got a lot of folks who talked about the Bears. Duke Fox, I love that name, by the way. He said, Duke shows Cal Southern hospitality. Blue Devils turn up the heat for Colden Bears, a reference to California being the Golden Bear State and to the fact that Cal was cold when it came to shooting.
Bobby Weinberger wrote, Cal needs to build a bear after dominating performance by Duke. That might have been the cleverest one, but I think I got one more, Jason. David Piccolo. He went, environmental crisis. EPA warns of spreading flags disease after golden bears turn blue.
Nice stuff. All right, let's get to the good and the bad from this contest. I'm going to start the good with this, Donald. The defense, that Duke defense, same defense that got bothered a little bit and frankly got scorched a little bit by Clemson. We were back to the elite Duke D. Cal was getting shot clock violations left and right. I mean, sometimes they were able to just barely get it off in time, but you were hearing the Duke bench that cry of three, 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 which means the shot clock's about to expire. You were hearing the Duke bench do that a lot when Cal had the ball. Full credit, by the way, to Jeremiah Wilkinson, the freshman for Cal, who pulled out some amazingly tough shots. But even with that, the rest of the Cal team seemed utterly frustrated. Stojakovic, who's their best player, was unable to even come close to getting going. Cal shot just 28% in the first half. That's a bad number. 28% is a bad number. I just thought this was an outstanding effort by Duke, switching all over the place. And, I could mention almost everybody. I mean, even down to guys like Isaiah Evans and Con Knipple, who don't have reputations for being great defenders. I saw Con defending Andrei Stojakovic at times and really giving him trouble. And Isaiah Evans in a game where he didn't shoot that great from the perimeter was really outstanding on defense.
Yeah, it was the height and length that really bothered them. And again, like you mentioned, I'll go so far as to say I was very impressed. That was the first time I'd seen Jeremiah Wilkinson play in full, minutes, and looked very good. Like you said, we still gave him a lot of frustration, but he was able to make some tough shots. And that's a really good player over there. So
yeah, by the way, in a normal year, that guy would be way up there in the running for ACC Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah,
not this year,
not this
but
year.
in a normal year. He was
hey, that happens, right? We've had a lot of guys who are like, oh, great year. Doesn't even get mentioned. They talked last night about Vernon Carey not even making the ballot because Trey Jones won it and then won Defensive Player of the Year as well.
Right.
So it happens. It's going to happen to Jeremiah Wilkinson. That is not on him and his effort. But I will say I thought the one part about the defense as well that was back was a rebounding. We out-rebounded them 43-31 and a lot of offensive rebounds from us, but we also kept them off of the glass on both ends of the floor. And I thought, like we said, this is a team that misses shots and gets a lot of offensive rebounds and misses shots and keeps doing that until they put the ball in the net or somebody eventually gets the ball and goes the other way. We had a lot of possessions where if they did get the shot off before the shot clock expired, we were getting the rebound and collecting it very quickly and getting out on the run. I thought we did very good at it limited their second chance points. They only got 4 baskets off the second chance off of an offensive rebound. And I think also just whoever was in the game was frustrated. Their bench only had 3 points, which is a great, great sign that even when our guys were in the game, even when our bench was in the game, they might have contributed as much in the offensive end, but defensively, that drop-off was never there.
I'm so glad you brought up that rebounding because in the preview, when I was talking about Cal, I identified a couple things that they do really well that I said, it's going to be an interesting battle to see who wins this between Duke and Cal. One of those things was offensive rebounding. Cal Cal is one of the better offensive rebounding teams in the country. And as you said, they only grab 22.5% of their missed shots. That's like a third lower than they usually get. And I thought one of the stories of this game was, you know, Duke executing our game plan and Cal being unable to execute theirs. The other thing I talked about with Cal in the preview that they do really well is they keep teams from shooting threes. And we talked about the fact that Duke hadn't had a game all year where they'd shot less than 23 pointers. And I was like, this may be the one because Cal is so good at preventing teams from taking 3-pointers. Lo and behold, Duke still gets 25 3-point shots in this game. Not talking about how many you make. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about your game plan. Your plan of attack involves taking a lot of 3-pointers. And Duke took a lot of 3-pointers because, and by the way, we hit 36% of them, which is a very reasonable number. But we took a lot of 3-pointers because we were able to execute what we wanted, even though that was something that Cal is really good at stopping. So I thought both the fact that we held down their offensive rebounds, the fact that we got a lot of 3-point shots were great signs that Duke was doing what Duke needed to do in this game.
Yeah, I think the 3-point shooting, I remember when we talked about the fact we kind of set that over under at 20, and I said that they would that they would hopefully shoot a little bit more, and that would be a good sign. Shooting 25, and like you said, making a respectable number. They made 9 threes, which again kind of kept Cal at arm's length the entire time. Whenever we needed a 3, it felt like we were able to get one. I want to kind of move into some of the individual players, and I want to start with Man, because one, he was doing it on both ends of the floor. Jason, he hit a 3 last night. That's how, again, you would think that would have us coming out of our chairs and calling each other saying we need to do an emergency pod. But he hit a 3 last night. But I thought the thing that we kind of, air quotes, challenged him on was his rebounding. He had 12 rebounds, 10 points, 7 offensive rebounds to go with 3 assists and a block. Not a man that's known for passing the ball around, but he was getting the ball out to especially those recovers where people would collapse on him because he's the tallest guy on the floor. He was able to dump off to guys to shoot threes and make them, or to dump off to other guys in the lane for easy baskets. I thought Man had a great, well-rounded game last night. Probably the best well-rounded game we've seen. I think he's had better games so far this season in Duke uniform. But as far as some of the things that he is not known for doing, for him to excel in some of those areas, I thought he did wonderful last night.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention regarding him that this was his first time scoring in double figures since the Miami game 7 games ago. And the 12 rebounds he had was his first time in rebound double figures since he had 15 against Miami. And the 7 offensive rebounds that you mentioned, that's a career high for him. The 3 assists is also a career high. I can't believe he had 3 assists. It's kind of that to me. I would do an emergency podcast over Man getting assists more than over Man shooting 3-pointers.
Yeah.
By the way, it's worth noting the second 3-pointer he took. I mean, he took 2 in this game. That's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
The second one was like just in and out. Like it was right there. So this is definitely a guy who's able to fill it up from the perimeter, I guess. And Shire doesn't mind. He didn't come out immediately when he did those. So Shire apparently has.
Well, when you make it, that gives you a stay of execution in certain cases.
I wouldn't say he has the green light, but it's at least like a little bit yellow.
It's a flashing yellow. It's a flashing yellow. Or I'm sorry, no, actually, just it might be a flashing red. Like, okay, if it's really clear, you can make that left hand turn. But if there's any cars coming, just stay where you are.
Yeah, exactly. As we continue to talk about individual players, I'm going to go for Tyrese Proctor. Dude is on a heater. I want to remind people, from Notre Dame through NC State, a run of 5 games, he averaged just 6 points per game. Over his last 4 games, he's averaging like 19 points per game, and he's shooting a sick 45% from 3. It is super impressive. And to me, I think maybe the most important thing that we're seeing, especially over the past couple games, is that Tyrese Proctor is becoming more than just a 3-point shooting outlet. He's doing more stuff off the dribble. He is going to the bucket in the lane a lot more. He's taking 3-pointers off the dribble in a way that he didn't do as much earlier in the year. In this game, he attempted 9 2-point field goals. That is 2 more than at any other time this year. Like Tyrese is not usually a guy who takes a lot of twos. And in his past 2 games, he took 7 against Clemson and he took 9 in this game. 2-point field goals. He's still hitting threes. He's still taking a lot of threes, but he has absolutely expanded his game lately to include more of an attack off the dribble, more of an attack in the lane. And that's a really good thing for Duke. The notion that in addition to Cooper Flagg, we would have another guy who's up there, scoring close to 20 points per game over the past several games. Thank you, Tyrese. Bring it on, baby.
Literally the first notes that I took of this game. Good start. Proctor was active early and man inside on the boards. That we just talked about those guys first off, because I think, Tyrese Proctor hitting those threes early kind of set the tone. But like you said, him getting into the paint, working his way to the rim, getting and somehow still finding, open lanes, right? And there was a point where Cal tried to kind of clog that up a bit, especially considering Man was getting so many offensive boards. They tried to put a bunch of guys down there to try and limit the number of stuff that they could do. Matty Sissoko was actually pretty good at trying to defend the paint early on, right? He was asserting himself in there, but Tyrese Proctor was still able to find a way. It was kind of reminiscent of his freshman year when he was able to kind of sneak inside and squeeze through some slices of light between guys and get to the rack and get points. So if we can get this well-rounded Tyrese Proctor and he can continue to keep him confident, man, this team is going to be good, because I think you have him, you have a Concanipple that, by his standards was kind of pedestrian last night, but he obviously can fill it up. He obviously can get 20 points in just a few shots. So I'm pretty confident that if we have those 3 guys going, we're a tough team to stop.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned Cal trying to sort of pack the lane a little bit. At one point, I think, and I'm sure it was just a blown defensive coverage, I think they were playing a 1-4 zone.
They were. Yeah. I don't know if it was 1-4 zone.
I was like, what the hell is that?
There was 4 guys with a foot in the paint. And one guy just kind of out like, who do you want me to guard? Because there's 4 of us on the 3-point line.
It was so weird to see. The other thing about the zone is at one point they went zone. They did a 2-3, but they had to, because Duke has shooters, they had to expand a little bit on the corners and be out there. And Malik Brown set the simplest little nothing screen on the guy in the middle of the 2-3. And as a result, Cooper Flagg was wide open for a slam dunk. You were just like, oh, that's how you pick apart a zone. It was ridiculously easy. I loved it.
Our ability to pick up a zone, right? Especially considering we don't really see it that much this year, because teams are like, this Duke team can shoot, so why would we give them that opportunity by presenting a zone? The way that we're able to, especially with our height, right? We're able to pass over any zone that we see, and the fact that we can crash through some of these lanes, get the ball in positions that make a zone collapse, and then making them pay for it. I want to see like the stats of Duke versus the zone, because I think it's like 92% from the floor with 150 points. Because every single time someone gets to the zone, we make them pay for it, and then very soon after, the team abandons that idea. That was last night too, and I think that 1-4 was a bold strategy, Cotton, to put 4 guys with their toe in the lane and watch 3 guys on the perimeter go, okay, which one of us wants to shoot it? But it worked, so everyone wants to keep doing it. Go ahead.
All right, so the last thing I have in the good is a gentleman by the name of Cooper Flagg. Not sure if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
My first thing I wrote was, seems like he's not sick.
Nice I think he still might be. I think he still might be. So
I think he was healthy, although this was like the most. I'm not ho hum 27 points, like pedestrian 27 points. It was kind of crazy to watch. Also had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 9 of 9 at the free throw line. Come on, 9 of 9 at the free throw line. Have you seen his free throw percentage in ACC games? He's up to 85% now, and he goes to the free throw line a lot. Oh man. By the way, little statistical note on Cooper. He had not won the Ken Pomeroy statistical MVP 3 games in a row, which I think Ken Pomeroy's computer was probably broken or something like that. I don't know how, but he hadn't won it for 3 games in a row. He went back to winning the Ken Pom statistical MVP. After this game, I suspect that he will win it a lot more. But he was his typical incredible. I don't know how a guy can ho hum 27 points, but it felt like a ho hum 27, didn't it?
Yeah. And that's not disrespect to how
Well, other
he
than the
played,
play,
right?
sorry, other than the play of the game, the play.
Other than play,
We'll
yes,
talk
play.
about
We'll
that
talk
in a
about play
minute.
the game later. But yeah, it wasn't like he was going through the motions. Again, I still think he's still feeling the remnants of it, and I think a lot of other guys are too. I think there's, it was funny. They talked about how good Sion James was last night in all areas of the ball, and I was texting my friend like, "Yo, he looks just a sluggish. Looks like it's a chore for him because it feels like he might be getting sick." And is it? If this is like Beer Fest, Jason, where you have to, the guy has the black eye all year as motivation for the big Beer Fest. If we have to kind of, it feels like this bug is just jumping from player to player just to keep them all motivated enough to keep going. But I really hope this team gets well very very soon because, but if they're playing like this when they're sick, like, can you imagine when these guys are fully 100% healthy?
Ugh, ugh. Last thing I want to mention very quickly in the good is welcome back Mason Gillis. Hit a
Yes.
three-pointer. Uh, showed his usual toughness, smart, heady ball play, and just did all the little things that Mason Gillis does all the time. Good to have him back on the floor. That definitely matters to the Blue Devils. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, a couple things we want to get to in the good, and I'm going to tell you about some of the worst announcing, worst color commentary you have ever heard that happened in this Duke game. That story coming up.
Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risks. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
We're back from the break, and we got to hit the bad from this game, from Duke's resounding 21-point victory over the Cal Bears. I'll start with this bad, which is that Con Knipple, kind of a quiet game for Con. 0 for 3 from 3, 6 points, 1 assist. As I said earlier, played some good defense. Was part of a strong defensive effort by the Blue Devils. But, I think Con usually is better than 0 for 3 from 3.
Yeah, it's weird, right? He hasn't had many of these games where he's pedestrian. So I'm willing to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. But yes, it was a pedestrian game. It wasn't like he was poor, right? I just thought he
Yeah.
didn't do a lot of what again, he's a victim of his own success. He's been so great this year for us that when he's not super otherworldly great, then we got to kind of talk about it. But I'm not concerned about it. Will he rebound this weekend and probably have a great game? I think so. He's rarely gone 2 games in a row where you're kind of going, "Hey, what's up with Khan?" But yeah, last night was kind of not up to Khan's standards that he's been setting all year.
Yeah, and look, the reality is we talked about Man has a double-double. Tyrese Proctor's up at 18 points. Cooper's getting 27. Sion's got 9 rebounds, 8 points, like doing it all. Well, there isn't necessarily really, everybody on the team can't get career highs every game. It doesn't work that way. So
Right.
so
Right.
I get it from Khan. I also want to mention I thought that Malik Brown was a little less effective than he usually is. Look, we don't expect much on offense. We got nothing on offense from Malik, and that's how things usually are with him, and that's fine because he's usually so disruptive on defense. He was playing good defense. I mean, a subpar Malik Brown defensive game is still probably one of the better defensive games around, but his impact wasn't as noticeable as it sometimes is. And you and I try to be very honest and fair in our assessments. We praise the guys when they deserve praise. And I'm just saying that I thought that Malik Brown wasn't as good as he usually is. And then Isaiah Evans is the other guy I wanted to mention. 0 for 4 on 3-pointers. There were a couple of them he took where I felt like he was pressing, like he was doing it a little too quickly. He has an incredibly fast release. But I wonder if a little bit of what happens to Isaiah is because he doesn't get as many chances as the other sort of big time scorers on this team. If he sees even the tiniest opening, he's like, I got to take this because I'm not going to get I can't pick my best spot because I'm only going to get 4 or 5 spots all game. So I
And
get
that's
it, but
fair too, right?
yeah.
That's fair. And you see that from a lot of different players and all across basketball, right? You see it in the second unit of guys in the NBA, right? They're coming in, they're jacking stuff from 40 feet because they're like, who knows when I'll touch the basketball next? And if you're on a team that has a huge star, you're like, I'm never seeing the ball. If he passes to me, like, I need to get an assist. If LeBron passed me the ball, I better shoot this and get him an assist. Otherwise, I'm never going to see the ball again. But yeah, I think for Isaiah, if he slows down even just a little bit, those shots are more in rhythm than they may appear to be the way he was playing. I will say in the case of Malik Brown, again, kind of picking nits here, he might have only had like 5 or 6 deflections last night as opposed to like, umpteen that he normally has.
Yeah.
So, but again, this also felt like a game that didn't present itself to be a Malik Brown type of defensive game. It didn't present itself to where his best qualities would be accentuated by the fact that Cal was kind of playing into his hands. He kind of had to work for some of the defense that he did do. And like you said, good defense. But the way it felt like he may have been non-existent is more a reflection of maybe this game wasn't built to be a type of game where his attributes would shine.
Yeah, and Cal's not a team that passes a ton. They had a decent assist rate in this game, but usually, and frankly, what I saw in this game, there's a lot of just, Stojakovic and Wilkinson and Blackshear just dribble until I find a shot that I want. And as a result, that it doesn't present as many opportunities for Malik to get those deflections and the such. And the other thing is, when he's in the game, he's guarding the center, and Matty Sissoko is not someone who's involved in the offense other than offensive rebounding.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it in the preview, right? You got to interview Mark Madsen, and Mark Madsen said, "I hope that our team is good when we pass the ball." You're like, "Well, you never pass the ball, so
Yeah,
you're never
exactly.
good, right?" That was present last night. They didn't have those opportunities to stick their hand in pass lanes because, frankly, Cal wasn't presenting that. I will say on the other side, when we were on offense, one thing that we loved to do was pass the ball, and this game was slightly a little bit less than
I had this in the
standard.
bat as well. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 assists on 27 made baskets. That's 44.4% assist rate. Again, we're usually up in the 60s. Our average is just under 60%. So
Right.
I think that's something where, again, a couple games in a row where we've had teams that try to pack the lane and try and make it where you can't really pass the ball. We still got our assists. We still got 12 assists, which is still a lot of assists. But the amount of baskets that we're making, we're usually in the 20s or close to 20 when we're making, close to 30 baskets. So again, not a trend, but it feels like these are teams that have presented themselves, and it's not going to get easier because Stanford is coming up as another team that doesn't like when teams pass the ball on them, so they try to limit that. This is something where it might be something that teams will actively try to limit when they play Duke because they know how good we are at it.
Yeah, as we move beyond the bad from the game, I want to discuss a bad on our ears, which is some truly inexplicably terrible announcing and color commentary and the such. I'm going to start with Corey Alexander, who is like he's the top color guy for the ACC Network. He does a lot of Duke games. Corey is at a lot of Duke games. Corey has a good researcher who looks at Duke and tells Corey what to say. And Corey Alexander repeatedly in this game talked about the fact that Caleb Foster hasn't had a field goal since the Miami game. I don't know how Corey came up with that fact because it's false. It's just not true. Caleb had 3 field goals against Syracuse, and that was all of 7 days ago. I mean, are you kidding me?
Didn't he call that game?
I think he did. Yeah, I think he might. Regardless, he said it once, and I was like, "Huh, is that right?" I looked it up, and I was like, "No, that's dead wrong." And then he kept on going back to it. I was like, "Someone get in his ear." I'm a television producer. Get in his ear and say, "Dude, it's wrong. It's just wrong. Stop saying it." And then I also wanted to mention at halftime. Now, I don't know how many of you listened to the halftime show on the ACC Network, but Michael Carter Williams was one of the guys, former Syracuse star, one of the guys doing the halftime color stuff. Usually we get Carlos Boozer. Booze wasn't there for this one. He was missed. Let's just put it this way. Michael Carter Williams comes on there, and the very first thing he says is he goes, I know Duke's really happy to get Shane Gillis back. So there's no one on Duke named Shane Gillis. We have Mason Gillis. We have no Shane Gillis. Shane Gillis is a very, very funny comedian. I would accept Shane Gillis on the Duke team. He'd have the locker room in stitches all the time. Dude's one of the funniest guys on the planet. I love me some Shane Gillis. But Shane Gillis is not playing basketball for Duke. And then seconds later, Michael Carter, after calling Mason Gillis Shane Gillis, and I get that, by the way. I'm sure he'd been listening to some Shane Gillis YouTube clips at or something like that. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to look into Mason Gillis's game, and on YouTube he typed in Gillis and he got Shane Gillis, and he's like, oh, so that was on his brain. I get that. But a second later he goes, the guy who had a really good first half, that Tyler Proctor guy. Who's Tyler Proctor? Shane Gillis is at least famous. I've never heard of Tyler Proctor. How can the ACC Network have these guys who don't even know the names of the players? And then the last one, I heard this on. I'll let you get in. Well, I'll let you get in. Hold on. There's one more.
Okay.
I heard on Twitter, because I reported these things to my myriad of followers, and someone replied and said, "Were you watching the Stanford Georgia Tech game?" Because in the Stanford Georgia Tech game, the color commentators were talking about how well Jalen Blakes was adjusting to playing in the ACC. He's only been in the ACC for 3 years. What is going on here? How do these people get these jobs?
Long adjustment
my God.
Period. So the funny thing is, we've seen a lot of Michael Carter Williams and Joel Berry this year commentate at halftime of Duke games. I think it's because Carlos used to do Duke games on the ACC Network all the time. That was never the problem. I think now that Caden and Cameron have committed to Duke, I think they've kind of, pushed him away from the Duke games, because you see him on other games on the ACC Network. So we get a lot of that. I will say, Jason, I do not want Shane Gillis on this team. I would love Mason Gillis to stay. Shane Gillis can come, but if Shane Gillis is not in behind Duke's bench on Saturday in a Duke hat, then we've messed up here. This is a prime opportunity. Also, congratulations. What you just did, great Shane Gillis bit that he should probably, maybe he won't steal from this pod, but we should package this up and sell that to people, because that was funny, Jason.
Thank you.
I will say the funniest thing last night that I was like, I don't have DVR where I can go back. I was like, I know he ain't just say what I thought he said, until my friend said, yes, he did. Jim Boeheim, during the game, they were talking about Matty Sissoko. He's from Mali, and they talked about how his NIL money that he was getting, he was sending all of it back home to help his family out, and everybody was commenting how great a thing that was, and how a lot of some of these players from abroad will do that from time to time. They come over here, they make as much money as they can, they send as much back as possible to help their family out. And Jim Boeheim goes, and he just, his three is West Durham, Corey Alexander, and Jim Boeheim. And Jim goes, yeah, I had a couple of players who sent their money back home too. It's great. It's a great thing. And nobody picked up on the fact that Jim Boeheim did not coach in the NIL era. So I don't know what NIL money he was talking about, but I was like, did I hear that right?
His players were getting paid, even though they weren't supposed to get paid back in the old amateur
NIL
days. Yeah.
Yeah. NIL bags. Yeah. I know those bags. They're nondescript bags. No markings on it. Things inside that you can send home very quickly that governments might frown upon when you take it through an airport. But, who am I to judge?
All right. Before we wrap things up, play of the game. I'm going to tell you, Donald, it was a few minutes into the second half, and I was sort of saying to myself, I was just sitting back on the couch watching this game. Usually I'm taking all these notes on my phone. I'm like, taking notes of the game so that I have things to say. And I hadn't taken any notes because I was like, this game is just kind of like we said, it's just sort of like, it's just going along and Duke's just winning by more and more and more every time. But I hadn't seen any plays that I was like, that's a play of the game. And I was actually texting a friend of mine. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to pick as play of the game. And it was almost in that moment that the play of the game happened. I'm not even going to say what it was, Donald. What do you think was the play of the game? Because I guarantee it's the same one as mine.
Cooper Flag tips the ball in the air, steals it, goes the other way, and decides, I'm a razzle dazzle. Double pump reverse dunk. It was
he rocked the baby. He rocked the baby.
Oh, no, he didn't rock it. He double pumped that.
Oh, it was a double pump? It looked like it was a baby.
It was a double pump.
Okay.
It wasn't there. Rocking the cradle was great. But this was a double pump that he was like, not only can I just yam this, no. I'm I want to end this even more. So let me do another one. But yeah, it was again, it woke everybody up, woke me up, like in a way of just like, oh, now we're doing something special. And immediately Cal was like, no, we're calling a timeout. This is not. It's not what we flew all the way over to
do. You know why they called timeout? They called timeout because they had to give ESPN time to show as many replays as possible.
Yes, they did
That's
take
a
that media
requirement.
timeout to kind of just go, hey, what was that? Like, I know the guys in the production truck were like, y'all have that ready? Okay,
Yeah.
just play that for 2 minutes. We'll tell you when you're done.
Yeah, exactly. I love it, and it doesn't happen often when you get a dunk that could be a slam dunk contest dunk in a regular game. That takes some.
Hey, All-Stars this weekend. So
yeah, baby.
It might be one of those like the starter ones, right? Like the early round, like warm-up dunks. Like that's what he did.
Reminded me a little bit of Zion's dunk. Was that against Clemson? I'm trying to remember the 360 that Zion did.
That was against Clemson. I'm sorry, it did not remind me of that one. But
well, I'm just saying in terms of showmanship.
Yes. I will say it reminded me a lot of for as far as showmanship, Cassius Stanley when he would dunk, because he would always felt like he was on the fly. Like Zion was already halfway down the court when he caught the ball and was like, all he had to do was just take one dribble and plant and go. This one was one, and also Cooper's when he dunked the life out of Guillermo Diaz-Graham, like those were on the run, right? On a fast break or steal of some kind. Cassius Stanley always felt like he was running faster than anybody else. He would start behind everybody, and then all of a sudden they'd pass the ball or go in the air, and they're like, who are they throwing it to? Is that a Cassius Stanley? Why was Cassius Stanley? How did he get all the way up here? Yeah. Never mind. Let me enjoy the show. That was Cassius Stanley. So a lot of those lately that remind me of him.
All right. So with that, with a little trip down memory lane there, courtesy of Cooper Flagg's brilliant dunk, we will call it quits on the latest edition of the DBR podcast. Folks, I want you to check your feed, because if you're listening to this episode, it's very possible that right behind it, within minutes or hours, you will see another episode, because we have to preview Stanford coming to Cameron, the return of the Blakes. Jalen Blake's back in Cameron. I'm super, super excited for this. We'll have that in your feed in a matter of moments. He is Donald. I'm Jason. And you know what? The only thing left now is for the Duke band to play us out and take us home.